The Silk Roads and Its Most Powerful Invention by Ben. World Cultures. Paper was invented centuries ago in ancient China. This paper-making skill traveled the Silk Roads, and soon paper was a worldwide industry. This is a map of the Silk Roads and where paper-making flourished. Although this skill spread quickly, there were only a few areas of strength, which included the paper-making capital of the Silk Roads, Samarkand. It's believed that paper was first invented in ancient China during the Han Dynasty. Kai Lun was known for being the inventor of the first paper. Kai Lun was a political official whose courtesy name was Jingzhong. In 751, some Chinese papermakers were captured by the Arabs. The method of making paper spread to Samarkand, where they started making books. Although papermaking was spreading everywhere along the Silk Roads, Samarkand had the most business for paper. Like in this image, paper mills were abundant in Samarkand. Samarkand very soon became the paper capital of the Silk Roads.
Paper was a popular item with traders along the Silk Roads. Early models of paper were not suitable for writing because of roughness. Paper was also used to wrap fragile packages because of the paper's thickness. Later on, paper was also used in military armor. It was weaved with cloth. Surprisingly, this paper armor could stop arrows and even weak bullets. Pulp papers were made by plants such as kozo, mitsumata, and hemp fiber. Toilet paper was also invented by the Chinese. Toilet paper was invented around the 6th century CE. In 1000 CE, the Chinese made the first paper money that was called flying money because it was much lighter than the standard coins. Yuanshu and Maobian are both calligraphy papers because the thickness does not allow ink to spread. Paper was not only used for paintings and calligraphy. Some books were made of paper, and in order to do that, some bookbinding techniques were needed to keep the paper together. Some types of bookbinding included butterfly, whirlwind, wrapback, pothee, stitched, and concertina. Pothee bookbinding was the only type that was influenced by another culture. Although paper was usually only used in separate sheets, it was occasionally used for many other things such as bookbinding. The Chinese started making paper during the 2nd century BCE. The oldest paper ever found was dated back between 140 and 87 BCE. The oldest written paper was from about 1,900 years ago. Before the Chinese started writing on paper, they wrote and drew on pieces of silk and bamboo. Paper was all over the Silk Roads and China. The capital of paper in the Silk Roads was Samarkand. Samarkand is a place on the Silk Roads in Uzbekistan. The Uzbekistanians captured some paper artisans in China, and they recreated paper in Samarkand. The first paper was made from raw, abundant materials that were close by the Silk Roads. Paper was made by mashed up plants like hemp. The plants were mashed into a pulp. Then the new pulp would be spread across a thin fabric sheet or mold, which allowed the liquid that had not evaporated to drain through. The dried pulp was pulled off the sheet, and the final product was a sheet of paper. Woodblock printing was a way to mass-produce books. Smooth, flat pieces of wood were used for woodblock printing. Someone would write characters onto the wood. Then someone would carve out the remaining wood so the characters and whatever was drawn on the wood would stand out. Then the wood was completely covered in ink so that when the wood was pressed into the paper, it would ink the characters onto the paper. This is how books were able to be mass-produced in ancient China. Paper was needed to write important documents and to do artwork that would be used for trading and propaganda along the Silk Roads. Paper was traded to very many countries along the Silk Roads. Sacred books were easier to copy with paper and woodblock printing, therefore religion spread faster around the Silk Roads. Paper was used in various art forms such as origami from Japan. Paper was also used in many paintings like above.